Madre John Madden Juanito in Fletcher, North Carolina, on September 17, 2025, 112 years to the day after my mother was born on September 17th, 1913. And I want to celebrate her. The most difficult relationship of my life and one of the absolute best. I've inherited so many things about her that are part of what makes me great, if I do say so myself. But it took a long time to learn to appreciate them because we had to get through a lot of mess. I'm going to start with a story. It's maybe mythical. It's almost mythical, but parts of it are true. My mom told me that when she had me, her first child, after 9 years of marriage, that the labor went on for many, many hours, and she got so freaked out that she was pulling instead of pushing. And after a whole lot of personal growth work around that one and our relationship, what I got to was I had to fight for my life in the womb. I was fighting to get free of her so that I could live. And that's been part of the truth of my life, that for me to be who I am, I had to get free of her expectations, free of trying to satisfy her, free of her approval, and free to become who I am. I was born 9 years into the marriage, and I was the little prince, the miracle baby. And the two main messages I got from my mother as a child were, number one, you're the prince, you're the miracle, you're the king, you can be anything you want to be. And two, you are a continual and ongoing disappointment to me. Yeah, I was. And I tried awful hard, including going to the seminary. My Irish Catholic family was so hard on men, as the women were at that time, and as the Irish Catholic Church was ferociously hard on men, their dignity, their power, their sexuality. They were led to feel guilty for having sexual drives, and their wives were taught to be frigid and denying of sex and disapproving of sex. And the priests had all the power. They couldn't stand up to the priests. So they drank. The curse was the term that got used by the Irish of how so many of the adult men turned to drink, like my dad did. And on one hand, I could say my mom made the mistake of marrying a hopeless alcoholic, but I think it's probably more accurate to say that she and her sister and their mother turned him into a hopeless alcoholic. Their ruthless judgment of men. I, as a little boy, when my dad had not come home from the bar on Christmas night and so many other nights, could hear them rant about their men. Aunt Marge's husband had gone on through the paper and left and never came back. Smart man. Nana, our grandmother, her husband, the same. And one of the great tragedies and healing challenges for my mom was how to forgive her dad, who moved to another town, dried out, created a new life with a new wife and new kids, and a better man. And she hated him until almost her death. I could see the signs in her last year of life as she softened. And people, when they age, tend either to go deeper into their habits, harden their grooves, or to let go, and she let go. She let go more and more and more and more. And I know she forgave him. She would tell the story of how at her wedding to my dad, Norman Edward Madden, she saw her dad parked in his car across the street from the church just to get a glimpse of his baby girl coming out. A couple of times when I moved back to Chicago from Syracuse or Cincinnati, various places I went, I would stay at the family house for a while. And on one of those occasions, I came back from whatever I had been doing on a Saturday evening, and she had been drinking. She never was identified as an alcoholic, but she routinely used her Manhattans to manage her emotional pain, which I couldn't heal. I couldn't heal. That's one of the things I had to come to terms with. I could not make her happy because she was not happy. So this is about that. I came home and I could tell she was off. Something was going on. She seemed haunted. I said, "Mom, what's going on? How are you?" She looked at me and with an icy tone of voice said, "A lot you care." And I had been so devoted to her. I knew in that moment that she wasn't talking about me. I knew this can't be me. It was her dad. She always dealt with the pain of him having left. And my dad leaving. My dad emotionally left. He vacated. He retreated. Okay, so that's some of the hard stuff. That's 6 minutes of the hard stuff. Let's celebrate my mom. I recently told the story of when the Eisenhower Expressway was completed in the western suburbs of Chicago. It was an easy pinch for cops to catch people unused to expressways still driving too fast on the regular roadways. And my mom got busted that way. And when the cop says, "Lady, do you realize how fast you were going? You were going 50 in a 30-mile zone." And my mom turned on the charm. She was a diminutive, 5 foot tall nurturer, in many ways, certainly not direct about her anger, except with her screaming at my dad. She was Enneagram 2, the guilt inducer, but in her own way, quite powerful, because she went into full dismantle this man mode. She looked at the cop and said, "Look at these two." My brother and I were not in car seats back then, no seatbelts. We were just sitting in the back seat. "Look at these, my two babies, who I care about more than anything in the world. Do you actually think that I would ever intentionally or consciously do anything to endanger these children?" Cop was beaten. he was absolutely beaten. He said he gave her a warning. And as he walked away from the car, she looked at us in the back seat and gave us a wink. She played him like a fiddle. Played him like a fiddle. My dad was not an angry man. He was a withdrawn alcoholic. My stepdad could be a raging alcoholic. And we watched her one day wink at us and then intentionally say some things to him that would turn him into a stark raving lunatic. And she got power from that. She was in charge because she played him. She loved her kids, fierce defender of her kids. 5 stepsons that she took on when I was a sophomore in high school. Joe Mullarrkey had 5 sons, and his wife had tragically died of the same kidney condition that killed 3 of those kids later on. But she loved them like us. Certainly not exactly the same, but they were her boys. They were absolutely her boys. And at the cottage that we went to vacation in Wisconsin, little John Michael, playing in the car, undid the parking brake, and that car was rolling back towards the lake. And then that little 5-foot woman sprang into action, jumped into that car, hit the brake, ferocious. Yeah, you did not mess with her cubs. Jimmy was the youngest of the bunch and was her baby, became her baby. He was younger than my younger brother. And when he died, I picked her up at the old people's home to give her a ride to the funeral. And one of the dippy old ladies said to her, "Oh, where are you going today, Lenore?" My mom said, intentionally to flatten her, said, "I'm going to bury my baby." She didn't wink around that one, but she was absolutely intentionally flattening that woman. On my 40th birthday, earlier than that, let's say, I turned down a 4-year scholarship to medical school partly because I had to, because I knew that I was about to be absolutely imprisoned. My whole life was spread out ahead of me. It was one of the bravest and best things I did. But she never forgave me for it for a long time. For a long time. She came back from a new doctor appointment and said, I was looking at the doctor's wall. He graduated from Loyola University Medical School, where you would have gone. And I was looking to see if he got your scholarship. On my 40th birthday, the card she gave me on the outside said, son, you could have been anything you wanted to be. I go, oh, fuck, what's this? Open it up and it said, I'm glad you decided to be you. And she meant it. She had come around the corner. Somehow she came to terms. Later on, when she was in the nursing home, she had had a serious heart attack at age 88. And the doctors said, we're not going to try to operate on this. She has 10 weeks to live. So she went to a nursing home for rehab first. And during that time, I was recovering. I was in the throes of having been misdiagnosed as bipolar, which crippled me and crippled my ability to do the kind of high-level corporate work I had been doing. And it was good that I wasn't, because I was available to be with her. There were lots of trips to the ER. So I got a part-time job. I had been a PhD clinical psychologist. I had done Fortune 500 consulting at very high levels. I had just got a part-time job as a salesperson at Marshall Field. And she looked at me and said, I'm proud of you. And she meant it. She meant it. She had changed that much. My son, his last visit with her back at the senior center where she had lived, where she was in hospice care. His last visit with her, she was asking about his life. She always wanted to know what was going on with him. And he was describing this emu, the electronic digital recorder that he and his friend were using to mix beats and create dance tapes. She had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, but he was describing how challenging it was learning to work with this thing. And she looked at him totally sincerely and said, I know you can do it. At her best, that's who she was. My brother was in some ways even more wounded by her because he lived in my shadow forever. I was the prince and he was, he also is nice, actually. Thank you. Yeah, he was. When she had that heart attack and needed to be in a nursing home, we picked one closer to, actually his wife, I guess, found it out in the northwest suburbs where they lived. It was just a few minutes away from their house. And there was a chance for him to do what he hadn't done, which was to really show up for her, because he had not. And they still didn't. They still didn't get by there very much. Thanksgiving, they paid a perfunctory visit to her in the morning and then went about doing what they were going to do. When she was in a coma, dying, he came to visit and sat at her bedside and was in agony. Agony. He had missed his chance. She was gone. So as he was getting ready to leave, I stood over her and shouted into her face, Mom, it's Terry. He came to see you. She sat up, looked him straight in the eye, and to the person who most needed to hear it, she said with absolute heartfelt totality, her last words, I love you very much. Boom. She was gone, back in the coma, and that was it. The most beautiful death I've ever seen. She had, 3 days earlier, we had a really sharp hospice nurse who was telling us how long she was going to last and tracking all the signals. Mom said to me, because she was so ready to go, she was racked with osteoporosis. She was totally content. She had softened and softened and softened. She was not a devout Catholic, but she absolutely believed in God and felt no concern about what was awaiting her. But she says to me, John, I'm frightened. Mom, you haven't been scared at all. What are you frightened of? I'm scared I'm not dying. And the nurse had just told me she has about a day and a half. So I looked at her and said, Mom, you're doing great. You're right on track. Just keep going. So I was her dying coach. And over the years, as it has gotten clear that her acid sense of humor is one of the key gifts in my life, her emotional generosity, she would give the shirt off her back. Her lack of deep racism, she was imprinted with the racism of the time, but she was super proud that her and my stepdad had gone to they were the only white people at the funeral of a black man she knew. She was a good woman. Good woman. There's so much else I could get into. Non-touch in our childhood. She would scratch our backs. But genuine physical affection, no. One of the main wounds I've carried my whole life was the way I got no physical affection as a kid. But as an 80-year-old, oh, did she like her hugs. Oh, she was crazy about hugs. She was in many ways for me a master class in personal healing and becoming, as you move towards death, who you're meant to be. Lord, help me to do as well as she did. And as they would say in the South, Mom, bless your soul. Bless your heart, bless your soul, bless you all around.